night. Alexa, shuffle my music. Um, Last night, right as I was closing up and wrapping up everything here, I accidentally dropped my headphones right into cadmium lemon. So, that's not good. I had to clean it the hell off. So now I'm sticking anything with cadmium lemon right in my fucking head. So, I apologize for being late. My son's karate class, he had a makeup class, and so I'm just posting out to everybody. Let know those that aren't paying attention that I'm here. He had a makeup karate class, and then that also ended up being late because he had his teacher had car trouble, so she couldn't get there, so we had to wait a little longer. So. As I say, best laid plans of mice and men. I've been passing this one up a couple times. I think I'm going to use this one. I also should let everybody know there is potentially a storm nearby. So, God forbid the power goes out. I will be Brian with extra salt, so you might as well just call me a pretzel. Yeah, I won't be very thrilled, but we'll see what happens, I guess. C'est la vie. Yeah, we're gonna need more than that. You know what? I'm not gonna add any more medium onto the thing because I got a lot of excess linseed oil from the other night when I put out the yellowish green. And I think I'm okay with that seeping into this cobalt blue base we're going to throw down. Just in the general area. So I'm going to shove this out of the way. Again, I'm not going heavy into it. I just want to, like a cover-up base for the most part. I'm not even going to worry about covering it so much as I'm just going to be getting some of it out of the way. Wow, it's got a big fat zero here for me. That's nice. Damn, it doesn't even... Actually, you know what? I was thinking about something. I was going to change something about this. I got to thinking that maybe I should make this brushstroke a little more subtle here. In other words, not to say like that the movement isn't going to be in the blue, and at least not this deeper blue. Not a lot of it. I was thinking that maybe I could add more of that type of movement whenever I add this lighter tone on top. If that makes sense. I think it makes sense. It probably doesn't. But I think what it'll do is it'll give it a more of a coherent feel between the two areas, so that whereas it starts to curve like that, and then so there'll be this unifying tone. I'm still trying to flat out my head, but that will take over and offer that the variety of the movement of the water. Saline, yeah. Yeah. Now, I won't lie. I had intended to continue to play with my, you know, shitty Microsoft Paint at work and just try to get an idea of what I wanted to do in here. But my mind became kind of focused on something else that kind of came up this morning. And something popped up very early this morning. I won't go into early details about it. Sorry, I'm kind of clickbaiting in a sense. Not really, because you guys should already be clicked here. But it was something just really caught my attention, and I needed to think about it all day in order to figure out how to talk about it later on tonight when I was coming home for dinner. Let everybody kind of. It's something. I'll give you a vagary. Yeah, vagary. Yeah. And my son said something in the morning, and it greatly concerned me. I know it's something he picked up from a YouTube video he's been watching, and it's like. It's certainly ideals that we don't tend to hold in my household, so it was something I needed to address. It was one of those things, you know. I didn't want to come off preachy. I'll be honest, I don't think I succeeded in not coming off preachy. But it was, yeah, but it's one of those things. I was trying to find a smart way to explain why the person he was watching was wrong in their opinions of it without being, like I said, without completely dismissing the ideas. Because if you know if it's flippantly dismissed, I think that almost attracts, especially a kid his age. You know, he's 11. He's at that. He's right on the edge of rebellion, you know, and yeah. I mean, I won't lie. I'm a very difficult father to rebel against because I tend to be pretty open-minded with a lot of things. So he's probably going to try to push to extremes when it comes to that time. Yeah, fully. One more thing. One more thing. This was definitely one of those kind of pickups from Amazon Music that I'm glad I got finally in my kind of regular rotations. L7. I'd seen them at Lollapalooza in '94, and they were fantastic. I really enjoyed them. Um, I cannot honestly say whether they were the best performance of the day because I didn't get to see half of it. I've explained before. I had a friend that got hurt. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. I think it was during the breeder set. Yeah, it was during the breeder set. She had lost her shoes during Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. She had gotten put up for crowd surfing or whatever, and people stole her shoes off and tossed them elsewhere, and she never got them back. And then during breeders, her feet got stepped on while people were kind of jumping around and pseudo moshing or whatever, and so she got messed up a little, on her feet. Thank God nothing was broken, nothing too horrible or anything, as I recall. Actually, yeah, I don't remember if she did leave in a cast or not. I think she just went in like a brace, but that's a really good question. I'll have to message her about that one. But it was a very funny night. I do remember that. It's very weird because Lollapalooza. I mean, this is when it was still touring, but it's still a big show. So there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of potential for accidents and stuff. But outside of that, there were just a lot of weird little moments. We had an English teacher named Mr. Anderson. We called him Mr. we used to call him King Adrock, referencing the VSU Boys. So we're just walking around, and there he is. There's Mr. Anderson. It's like, yo, what are you doing here? It's Lollapalooza. And he wasn't like a younger, hipper teacher or anything like that. I mean, he was going bald. He's been at the high school for a number of years. He just said, he goes, well, I was at the house, and the wife told me to get out of the house, so I came here. I was like, so you just decided to come to a festival concert? Cool. It was like okay, all right, Don't know how else to respond to that, so we'll just say all right. And so that's where the weirdness kind of began. And then it got kind of a little weirder. Like, all right, we go to the hospital, and while we're in the hospital waiting for Colleen to get checked out and everything, our folks eventually come and everything too. But before they got there, another group of kids had their friend come in. He had gotten really messed up. He got fucked up, just smashed around and stuff. And excuse me. So they're waiting on the word from their friend. As we're just sort of sitting in the waiting room, and it was kind of, we started just bonding a little bit because there's so much shit going on with so many people. It just took forever to just get Colleen even looked at. So, we're waiting around, and our friend, if I remember correctly, took priority because he, like I said, he got fucked up. So, sorry, I'm looking for my theme. So, we're there, we're bonding, and then at one point some of his friends just go, dude, I am hungry. Anybody want White Castle? I'd never had it before, and they're like, you want White Castle? I'm like, whatever, just give me some burgers, and I gave them some money, and they came back 2 hours later because they had to find the White Castle. They weren't really familiar with the area. So they find White Castle, they bring it in. But while this is all going on, while we're waiting for White Castle to come back, I ended up hanging out with, Colleen's dad. And it's funny because when I first met him, and as I had known him, my buddy Joe had dated Colleen for a little bit, and, he always came across as, a really stern dude. And it was I was intimidated. I was scared by it. I was a skinny little nothing back then. I mean, not huge in any way, shape, or form now. I mean, God knows I'm flabby. for the most part. But uh-oh, that's bad. Let's see if I can cut that out. Shit, that's terrible. I hate when that happens. I touched the blue. Cross stream, so to speak. It's gonna fuck up that paint for the rest of the fucking time. Let's see if we can fix this. At least get the majority of it off. You know what we're gonna try? Take one of these other brushes here. Red green. Ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher. And it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire. Alright. I'll get rid of most of that, I think. So it's just one of these weird little, you know. Here I thought I was a rather unliked dude, but, you know, hung out with his daughter. I mean, like I said, Kyle was like a sister to me, but it was like, you know, still, it's like, dude, this guy scares me. And it turns out he's like, by the end of it, we were pretty cool with each other. I fell into a burning ring of fire, went down, 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 and the flames went higher. And it burns, 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 the ring of fire. It's funny, I'm really not a country fan. And there's part of me that feels like there's nothing more country than Johnny Cash. And then there's part of me that feels like he doesn't really count as country either. Like, is that weird? I don't know. Does that make sense, though? Like, Johnny crossed over at some point to, like, just music. Do you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Did you hear that the world is ending? Right here, right where we stand. Be bad. Summer's too long. Get the wood. I'm in Seattle. Fall to the sea. Sorry, I'm like my whole time's screwed up right now. So everything, like I said. Some brown. Look at that. Yeah, like I said, my whole night plan was screwed up because karate went late and came rushing in. I had everything set too. It pisses me off. And then I screwed up. I left OBS open when I unplugged the cameras last night. And that freezes it. It doesn't, like, just, even when you close it out, like, it takes a little bit to reconnect your cameras. At least the way, my experience so far. I mean, that's not much, but. Onto the sea, earthquake, tsunami, there's still no place I'd rather be. Tsunami, there's still no place I'd rather be. The band is Taco Cat. Taco Cat spelled backwards is Taco Cat. I really know where you wanna be when the See. Beautiful Seattle. I'm gonna go one day. In the end, I'm still an old grunge head. I know that sounds kind of tongue-in-cheek and like the whole discussion of the end of the world and crazy earthquakes and whatever. But dude, the shit coming from the Hawaii volcano is just fucking terrifying. Alexa, skip. Don't you do it. Don't you do it, bitch. Alright, good. I was just expecting another Deflator Mouse track. I know it's like old hat at this point. This electrical skateboard, if you've been here as often as it says you are here, you've seen me yell at this damn thing a number of times about it. So I'm like creeping, seeing who's here. I need somebody to talk to, man. So unless if your name's here, if you're not really watching. The talking back's always fine? Not really. I mean, like talking back, like not like, you know, tell your kid to do something, they talk back. That's no fun. Admittedly, that's always been my greatest weakness too. Like, I have raised my children to question things. You know, I really want them to seek truth. You know, not just accept blindly on authority. So I want them to question their teachers sometimes when they say just to do this thing or that this is the, you know, this is the event that happened in history exactly as it happened, you know, and to sometimes put a little, you know, is it really? Because, you know, there's a lot of American and you know, even European history that it's not quite as accurately taught as it ought to be. I mean, you know, look in my own city, we have a glaring example of it with the Betsy Ross house. Is it a possibility that Betsy may have sewed together a flag at some point for the, you know, the United States, you know, rebellion against the British? Sure, maybe. Is there any goddamn proof of it? Or especially the way that they pose it in the, at least when I was a kid. I don't know if they've changed their tour. But when I was a kid, it was, oh yeah, she knew them all. She hung out with Washington and Franklin and those guys. And it's like, not at all. The family made up half the stories just so they could keep the house. You know, they could get it, like, you know, marked as a historical landmark, and there we go. So it's stuff like that that I want them to question, but in the same point, as I learned with my oldest, even, that gets backfired on me a lot. And it's half insulting and half pride in it. You know, it's like, dude, yeah, I want you to question, but not like me. But then If I fall back on an old, because I said so, then I know that I deserve it. Like I guess the best way to put it is like this. When I was in my sophomore year of high school, it was when the Holocaust Museum opened up, and we had done a real focus on the Holocaust actually for a literary magazine at the school, which is like an extracurricular thing. And so there was a lot of focus already on it in our outside curriculum, not even like in the regular curriculum. But in the regular curriculum, we took a trip down to that Holocaust Museum as it opened up. And between that and we had seen Schindler's List, actually. We had to get special permission from my folks and stuff. But for that literary art magazine, we also interviewed some Holocaust survivors. So that whole year was like really heavy into studying and learning about how that was even possible to happen. And it disturbed the fucking hell out of me. And I pretty much at that point swore that I would be, the photo of the guy where it's in Nazi Germany and oh no, did I get knocked off again? Oh, I'm sorry, just looking. I'm like all distracted. It should be. This is kind of an important thing. But there's an old photo of a guy at a Nazi rally, and there a ton of people in the crowd. It's just focused out on the crowd. It's not focused necessarily on Hitler or anybody on the stage. But he's sitting there like this as everybody else is doing the salute. And that picture I wasn't aware of until many years later, after the internet became like an actual thing in everybody's homes and stuff like that started getting passed around. That it was always like, be that dude. Even without seeing that picture, I kind of swore at that point I'd be that dude. So I was once told at a job that when I was waiting tables that I have a problem with authority, and I tried to explain to them I have a problem when authority fails. And an incident that occurred with me in the like assistant manager of the restaurant had happened the night before, and it was like, I don't just blindly follow. It's one of the reasons again why I have sometimes issues at my job and stuff that I do nowadays, because it's like I hear the same old solutions, quote unquote, and they don't do anything. They haven't done anything before. They don't do anything now. They keep reshuffling staff and thinking that solves the staffing problem when it doesn't, and because of the staff, it's the number. They still haven't figured that out, it seems. But they look at a budget number and they keep trying to get by with the bare minimum, and eventually people start cracking, like I did. And so now, when they come up with these best methods, which are the same old methods they keep trying to shove down our throats, I don't tend to find myself very receptive to them. Surprise, surprise. Oh, not that one. Not that one. Not that one. And I want to have that in my kids. I would, as much as I swear I will be that dude, if something like that were to happen here, where I'll be standing like that, I really want to make sure that my kids are too. But like I said, the downside, the counterpoint to that is sometimes we tell them to do something and they just go, no! Why should I? And then we have to figure out an actual rational explanation because he's saying just because I said doesn't work. I've literally told them not to do something just because someone says to do it. You know, the old "if your friends jumped off a bridge" type scenario, but it's literally like if Glorious Leader told you to jump off a bridge. Would you do it? And the correct answer is start a revolution. That's me. And I'd be lying if I didn't think that sometimes, as I look at things now, it might be really, really important. Certain groups have popped up when we thought, for the most part, they had been not snuffed out, but generally relegated to an outlying part of the American society. Now they seem to be noisy again. So, I can kind of go into this too, because at this point, like I was saying about in high school, a buddy of mine got kind of mixed up with some. I'm gonna call them neo-Nazis. They weren't like that, but they were definitely white supremacists. They were on that level at least, for sure. And thankfully, figured out they were all pussy cowards too when he started mouthing off, and he got into a fight, and they all backed away from him. And he realized he had fucked up. He thankfully turned around on that really quickly. But he was hanging around with these people for a while, and unfortunately, as I was far too concerned for him to just abandon it to that life. So I didn't join him in any of this crap, but I was not going to shun him. And so I ended up on more occasions than I would have cared for having an interaction with some of the assholes that he was hanging out with at the time. And one of these jackasses tried to tell me that it's okay to hate other races because hating other races is practically a requirement for the human spirit. This motherfucker tried to say that. And then he tried to say he was a Christian. That was funny. Like, I've said it before, I'm not a religious man, I'm not a Christian man, but at least I understand their beliefs to a degree, or at least I understand the quote-unquote teachings. I was an altar boy when I was younger. So I know he's full of shit. Anyway. So he said you have to. Like he says, you can't tell me that there's not a group of people that you don't hate. You have to hate a group of people just to be human. Some horse shit like that. And I literally looked at him and went, all right, I'll think about it. Right? And then I half jokingly said to him, probably the next day, I've decided. Blind albino pygmy circus midgets, they're the fucking problems with this country. And he looked at me like, the fuck are you talking about? And my thought process was generally, look, I'm going to put those criteria in. If I have to hate somebody, that's what I'm going to hate. Because my chances of running into a blind albino pygmy circus midget, all four have to be, my chances are pretty low. And admittedly, I know I'd end up, since it's not really a belief, I'd still let me talk to you and to know you. But it was, I was trying to make a very clear point that he's a moron. Unfortunately, it was too stupid to understand the crack. But I'm not surprised. Shit. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I gotta go upstairs real quick. I'm working the nighttime. I might not ever get home. So, I will be right CBGB. I ain't got time for that now. Alexa, pause. Yeah, there's a little delay here, and it's always creepy to watch myself like come back in. It's like I have a visitor. No, it's just me. Alexa, resume. Heard about Detroit? Heard about Pittsburgh, PA? You want to know not to stand by the window. Somebody see you up there. Some peanut butter to last a couple of days. But I ain't got no heads ain't got no headphones. Ain't got no records to play. Why stay in college? Why go to night school? Thought I'd be different this time. We tapping phone lines. I know that ain't allowed. I'm in a suit and a tie. I've changed my hairstyle so many times now. I don't know what I look like. They won't survive. The downside of shaving off what I did last night from here, it's picking up these little flakes sometimes at the bottom. I did kind of say to myself, I'll be honest, so if you've been along with this journey at all, God bless you on how you can watch it, because I can't. I don't like it when I'm here. No, I said, if this isn't finished by Monday night, it's abandoned by Monday night. I've got to move on. I'm kind of sick of looking at this painting at this point. And maybe it's something I'll enjoy and come to like. But it's fought me too long, fought me too hard. And I'm tired of it. I'm just exhausted from this. Ooh. I just pulled the tip off of my brush. That ain't good. I'll try to recrimp it or something. Tighten it up. Oh, that humidity's spiky now. Oh, sorry. I can like literally. It's just the storm's just starting to touch the area. I could see the lightning in the distance earlier. No, it sounds absurd. Please tell me who I am. Watch what you say. They'll be calling you a radical, a liberal, a fanatical criminal. We might need to make up some more. This blue. It's not coming out. Yes, it will spread a little bit into that. That's why I probably need a little more. I mean, we still have white there, so I really just need to drop in a little cerulean. Let's see, I'm going to pick up some of that cobalt. Actually, I do want to pick it up. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Stay with me, baby. Come on, stay with me. Come on, baby. Take Ike back. Within itself. They can feel it all over, people. They can feel it all over. I think it ended up being a little lighter this time. I don't know if I really want to throw in more cerulean, just because. Yeah, it does need a little bit. I'm just thinking to myself that it's going to be hitting areas where the cobalt's thicker, but we need it. We need it. You can feel it all over. You can feel it all over, people. Whoa. Dude, I literally just did like the thing where you send yourself an email reminder. You know what I mean? Like if you ever send something from your work email to remind you to do something later, so you send it to your home email, or you send yourself a text message, whatever, just to keep something in your head, and then you immediately see it and go, "Oh, look, a message." I just did that because I just saw where I said I'd be right back, and I was like, "Oh, somebody's coming." It's been one of those days. I'm trying to think. What was my first moron today? There's something really good too. Hold on, actually, I think I posted about it. No, not there. Oh, that's right. I had a customer ask me about a part number, and they were wondering if it was a built-to-order part or if it was a stocked item. And it's kind of a little bit of both, if this makes sense. All right. It is a part that's actually made up of like 3 little parts. Okay. It's not like a big assembled thing or anything like that. It's like 3 or 4 little components slapped together. Um, and the person sent me this in a chat request. Now, earlier in the day, probably about 2 hours earlier, the same exact company, it was a different person, but the same company, had asked me about one of these exact part numbers on one of their orders. So what this is telling me in my head is person A called to find out the status of it. I tell them what I could see in my order that there's none of that they didn't have the parts they needed to put this together, and so I tell them, look, they're missing this one part, and it's the main part, it's the big part of it, so they can't assemble it right now until they get that coming in. And then person B must have heard it and said, that doesn't sound right. This is supposed to be in stock. Or something along those lines. And so that's why they're calling to clarify. They wanted to get me to go, oh, no, it's a stock item. And then go, well, why don't we have this one on our order to ship? I guess they were not expecting to get the same person on the chat as they got on the phone earlier. But so I tried to explain to the second person, which is person B, this is a item that's made out of parts that are usually in stock, but right now there was no stock of the main part. Once it arrives, it's assembled real quick. It's nothing big. I say real quick in my company's time. So it's 1 to 2 business days to ship once they get all the items. And I thought I explained it pretty cleanly. And I'll say exactly what I said to them. This is a part that goes through our modification shop. It's made out of a couple other parts that are assembled together, and usually these parts are in stock. But right now we're missing this main part. Once it arrives, and there's a shipment due in tomorrow, we'll ship within 1 to 2 business days. And then she responds back with, so is it in stock or is it a made-to-order item? If I had said it to her on the phone, I could understand. Maybe you tune out for half a second, you know. I could see missing that, like maybe that, you know, oh, it is assembled, or that, you know, it's made from parts that are typically in stock, or something. I could see her missing something like that. But the fact that it was literally written out the exact line ahead of her, you know. And I explained to her, I said, I have an open case for, you know, I won't say the people's name, but, you know, and they asked about this exact part on your order number, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, would you like to be copied in on that? And then I got a, so-and-so is disconnected. I was like, okay. So I'm guessing that's a no. Just, sometimes I'm just amazed. It's like, dude. This was a system we implemented, and I said to them when they were putting it in for us, I was like, some of the people I deal with get confused by shoelaces, dude. Like, they're like turkeys. They look up during a rainstorm, they're going to drown. It's, you know. I'm certainly not someone to, you know, I know that I should never judge, you know, a fish on its ability to climb a tree. You know. And so these, and I technically am actually, in a weird roundabout way, advocating for my customers because I know this chat stuff confuses the shit out of them. I know it when I talk to them. A lot of my customers still try to use faxes. I mean, like to fax orders and stuff, and we've told them countless times that the fax system has pretty much all but been eliminated. And if you send a fax in, you got about a maybe on a conservative guesstimate, probably about a 30% chance that fax will go through, and that's on a conservative. I would bet it's actually lower. That we'll actually get that fax because there's like a really screwed up thing in it that. Since there's not really a fax anymore, it's like goes into the email box or whatever, and the way ours is set up is if 2 faxes were to come in at the same time, or anything else is going on at that exact moment in that email box, the fax will roll over to our regular phone system, which then will lead to somebody picks up the phone and hears, you know, all that fun stuff. And there's no, your fax didn't go through because as far as the, I guess, you know, that person's fax registers, it got a pickup. Like somebody picked it up because the phone was answered. It just didn't go to an actual fax machine. It went to a person's ear. So we've been trying to get away from it for years now. Years. I still get people that call on parts that we had sold off, and actually before I had started. These things called definite purpose contactors. They sold them off, like I said, about a full year before I had started there, and they sold off everything. There's no stock. There's no support. We don't have any parts for them. You know, big announcements were sent out through our sales guys, through our online service things, all that crap. And, through 2011, 2012, when I started, even 2013, you got it when they called. You understood. It's like, dude, we don't sell these anymore. Sorry, here's some people you can call that bought our stock. But otherwise, the customer's kind of shit out of luck. We got to find either a competitor's cross. We can give them like a partial functional thing, but it's not going to fit there. So most time that's like that kills the deal, so to speak. But now here in 2018, I still get fucking phone calls for them, and I get phone calls from people that I've already told we've sold off all stock and support to this probably 300 times. Like. And I've told them to identify it just by, if it starts with a 16 or a 42, like, it's dead in the water. Don't even bother, well, the customer just wants me to check. No, there's no need to. You've been told. It is dead. That whole line, there's nothing left. But what about the, no, it's all gone. They don't get it. So like I said, we're now introducing a new technology for them to use. It's like, this isn't going to be growing pains. This is going to be however many years I have left of this shithole company pains. I hope I'm not there next year, but I'm not getting any callbacks. Wanna live in your misery. I don't live. And I'm gonna have to go in here again, like the way the orange and the blues are just sort of. They're not really. The orange is went in very thin. Now the blue's going on very thick on top, and I wanted to have a little more interaction, a little more. How are you? Oh, it's been a while. Kind of. No idea what I'm talking about. She said, I'm dead. Just starting to lose itself. That's what I get. It's not mine, actually. just wanna get there faster. Yeah. I don't think Gifts gets enough love. So many people, look, Siamese Dream is a fan-fucking-tastic album. It is truly magical. But Gish doesn't get enough love either. Practically everything leaves totally cold. The only exception I know is that grace. Scuttle sing it again. When you're done, and I suddenly turn and see your fabulous face. My oldest daughter was little. I had her at the car alone with me more often than I'd ever run into the case with my two younger ones now. So that meant I was in charge of the radio entirely. My wife tends to limit what she'll listen to when she's in the car with me, for the most part. So it limits what the kids get to hear too. So Frank tends to not be something regularly played. She might let it every now and then, but she doesn't let Sinatra be played very often. Doesn't let classical music, so she doesn't let that play. But when my daughter was little, my oldest daughter, I had to take her back and forth a lot to, with her mother, and we had joint custody, so it was a lot of bouncing back and forth. And at the time, we lived in Malvern, and her mother was. Did she live in Delaware yet? I think she had moved to Delaware, I believe. By that point, I think. Either way, there were a lot of long drives sometimes, and I'd put on this Frank Sinatra. But I never wanted to actually explain to her what cocaine was. Because he talks about it. I'm sure if I even took one sniff, So when it would come up to the part where he's, some people may go for cocaine. I was like, some people may go for, just drop it real quick. Oh, I thought I heard something, kiddo. I was more likely to let an F-bomb fly through a... What the fuck? Just stopped. Can you figure out what I might have said? What did I say that stopped that? Anyway. It's like I was more likely to let a profanity go through than... I just didn't want to have to be, what does he mean by some people go for cocaine? This is fucking awesome. Like, walk at the club, like, what up, I got a big cock. I'm just love I got some shit from the thrift shop. French is so damn frosty. The people like, damn, that's a cold ass honky. Alligator shoes, those are green. Probably should have washed it. It smells like R. Kelly's sheets. Piss. Shit, it was 99 cents. It's not those moccasins. and someone else has been walking into me. My money, and I'm hella happy. That's a bargain, bitch. I'm gonna take Grandpa stop. I'm gonna take your Grandpa stop. No, for real. Ask Grandpa, can I have his hand-me-downs? Doogie Brown leather coat found. They had a broken keyboard. I bought a broken keyboard. Bought a ski blanket. Then I bought a kneeboard. I can wings make it cool. Sell those. The sneakerheads be like, oh, you got the Velcro. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome. I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome. What you know about rocking a wolf on your noggin? One man's trash has some other man's come up and now, see, this is where I maybe it's just I haven't been in a Goodwill in a long time. I drop off stuff there a lot, but yeah, we make sure the kids know when their toys are kind of complete with, or if they haven't played with them in a while, then we make them, hey, these go to people who'll need them more, they can entertain them more, they'll play with them more. But I'd never seen, when he talks about the fur foxskin you had or whatever, in a Goodwill. Now, we had an old strip mall. It used to be around this area. I don't know if it's ever actually got completely torn down. I'm trying to think about it. I think they still kind of kept most of it. It's called the McDade Mall. You can actually see the mall. They used it in what was the name of that movie? With Mark Wahlberg. His daughter gets murdered, and she helps solve it from beyond the grave. Fuck. The Lovely Bones? I think it was the Lovely Bones. They used the McDade Mall because it actually was something that was quite prevalent at the time that took place, which was like in the 70s. It was like a liked area at the time. And they were in the process of about to tear most of it down and renovate it or whatever when they wanted to film that movie. So they just took it as a perfect example. Yeah, a perfect place. The mall's empty. Fuck it. So they made it, perfect for the movie. But I digress. There was a store in there that used to sell like those fur foxskins and stuff. It wasn't like a Goodwill. It was just I always refer to it as like the knife store because you could always go in there if you wanted to buy knives, and even as kids they seem to sell them to people. Like they'd sell it to like teenagers and stuff, like kind of almost indiscriminately. Nowadays that place would be like locked the fuck up real quick. But back then, I guess, different time. It eventually became very weird, like as far as as it was coming towards its end, like they wouldn't stop a teenager from smoking in there per se. They would stop you and try to find some way to verify that you hadn't bought the pack of cigarettes from the vending machine that was in there. So it's not like they asked for a receipt. I really, it was basically all down on, did you buy these here? No. Okay. It was very, very bizarre how they kind of, what was allowed, what wasn't. In those last few years or so of, they used to have a great rock t-shirt place. I got all sorts of stuff from that. That was before I ended up going to South Street a lot. Like once I got to the school in the city, it was like All right, I went to South Street. Zipperhead was like the fucking bomb. So I just went to Zipperhead and bought my T-shirts there. But and yes, I am one of those 40-year-old guys that still has a T-shirt I wore in high school. Actually, I have two. Um, I don't pull them out very often. Usually, it's like if I have absolutely nothing else to wear, but or I'm just really in a nostalgic mood. I have two old Nirvana T-shirts. Um, One I've always worn as like almost like a self-realization shirt in a way, or something, or pseudo self-promotion, if you will. I don't know. It's typically, I guess, called the seahorse shirt. So it's just a picture of seahorses on the a seahorse with a bunch of babies coming out of it, and that says like, ever the trendsetter, the male seahorse will carry the children to terror, blah, 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 blah. Some of that, gives you a little scientific background on how male seahorses actually will carry the babies and take care of them, etc. And then it just ends with, this was a Nirvana T-shirt. And I loved that shirt because, I was a teenage father who typically, in all sorts of regular, normal situations of the world, so to speak, ends up being the guy. Usually the teenage father is either by choice or in some ways forced to the outskirts of their kids' lives once their relationship ends. And I didn't allow that to happen. I had one eventually primary physical custody of my daughter. It was a joint custody. So, I mean, it wasn't like I was, she's got plenty of time with her mother, but a majority of the time she was with me, much to her chagrin, I'm sure. My daughter's not my ex-wife's. I'm sure she's not with me, but so I still have that one. I kind of won't let that one go. And then I have it's just looks like a pen drawing of Dave, Chris, and Kurt. And I still have that one too. That one's pretty much almost like a totally bumming type shirt. Like, if I'm doing something that's probably going to get me dirty, I'm probably wearing that shirt. Business is calling you, dude. Now do yours tomorrow. Tomorrow, today. Out. It's about your party. He is calling you, dude. Now do you believe in the one big sign? Double wide shine on the boot heel of your mind. Doesn't matter if you're fat. Something in your onion head hat, building a religion. Mr. Corporate Repent. Pepsi, some drink of Coke. The wacky morning DJ says democracy's a joke. Now do you believe in the one big sign? Believe. He is in the accepting. He is calling me, dude. Do you believe in the one big sign? The double wide. Fuel is your way. really do want to see Cake. I gotta remember to buy those tickets. With the man, I think very soon too. I think it's June, early June. I better check. I hope they're still available. Leaks. I waited a while. Pending keychain. I think I'm going to hit it with that teal too. I like that. Teal blue we had. Now, if I'm not mistaken, my wife and I were intending to paint my outside entrance to this area this weekend, but I believe the weather has decided to say no to that. And we have a Phillies game on Sunday, so that's going to throw another monkey wrench into this whole plan anyway. So, I think the general goal here is we're going to be putzing around the house for the most part. So I might, without broadcasting, get back in here possibly Saturday at some point. Hoping. Let's put it that way. I really do want to be done with this fucker. I just don't think, given everything as it stands right here, what I expect it to be in 40 minutes even. I'm not sure I can pull that off. My soul the way I do. This is why it'd be nice if I could get my just have the ability to work from home on Fridays. And it'd be nice to have that back because it's like I'd just stay here a little longer. It'd be if I didn't have my commute, you know. My commute's fucking horrible. I can't see end of me, my whole expanse. I cannot see formulate affinity stored deep inside of me. Friend suggested that this was maybe just too much of a hard line from the dark to the light here. I think I'm kind of starting to agree with her, so that's what I'm going to do. These little elements here to drift it out to here, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of that cobalt, a little bit of that sugar crisp. Sorry, I was watching Green Grumps earlier today. If you've not heard their political sugar bear. Holy fuck, that's funny. I just crack up, though, that there were people that were, like, getting offended by the various political positionings that they were promoting in it and not understanding that, dude, they were just saying shit that would be hardline political one way or the other, not necessarily what they truly believe themselves. It cracks me up sometimes. But feel free to watch it at some point. Somebody did a Game Grumps animated too. It's very, very funny. It's funny. I it kind of cracks me up on how I ended up becoming a Game Grumps fan. What? What did I say? What did I say? Fuck you. Anyway. That's a nice color to add onto it. Anyway, I actually began watching because my son, when he was even younger, I mean, he was 8 years old maybe, had stumbled upon them. And, you know, they talk about things that are not necessarily things a 7 and 8 year old child should be listening to. So it was more like I started actually watching them basically to get the watch this episode off of my suggestions. And I know there's actually probably easier ways to do it, but I wanted to kind of keep him lost on what he had watched and what he hadn't watched. So it kept him from searching for them and eventually gave up on them. But in the meantime, I started laughing my ass off at some of them. And my wife actually started to like look at me like, what are you like? We yell at the kids about some of the stuff they watch with these people just watching. Why would you watch them play video games? Like, I had to explain to her. I was like, honestly, 90% of the time, and should Aaron or Dan ever stumble upon this video, I'm not trying to insult you. 90% of the time, I don't watch them. I almost treat them like a radio show. I don't think that's highly offensive. If it's a game I was like really like maybe that I was into, I might watch it. You know, like if it's something I had played when I was younger or something, or if for no other reason, because sometimes it makes me feel validated when Aaron sucks at that game too. And it's like, oh, good, I'm not the only person that sucked at that game. But, or if it's like a game series I love, like Zelda, like, you know, I'll watch any of that. I know, you know, if you're familiar with them, Aaron has his problems with some of those Zelda games, and truth be told, some of the ones he's got problems with, I've had problems with. I don't think I ever made it past the first world you visit. Not to the camera. It might look like I'm flipping you guys off. I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. Yeah, sorry. Not you guys. I was waiting for the delay. Not my viewers, please. That's the echo. Little bitch. Anyway. What the fuck are you doing, man? Killing me. You're killing me. Killing me, Smalls. But like I never made it past the first like place you visit in Skyward Sword. Outside of like once you leave the, you know, area in the sky or whatever, you started to try to drop down. I sucked at that game so bad. And I found the controls unresponsive. So I was just like, no. I like Twilight Princess. I thought that was a really good one. I never played Majora's Mask. I have it, but my N64 died. I bought it used, and I intended to play it, and then my nephew had turned it on and said, dude, you have a finished game save file. Don't ever get rid of that. And kind of like in my head, it was like, I have a finished game save file. No need to play the game. Because if I ever want to skip the end, I just flip that one on. And so I never did. And I guess I was sort of intimidated by the whole 3 days concept. Because I'm usually like stupidly slow in the dungeons. So there's a very, very good chance anyway that I would have continually had to reset when I was halfway through a dungeon. Which means I had to redo the dungeon again. And that's the type of gameplay that will definitely trigger me. I think that's a polite way of saying it. One She's talking about a penis. I gotta be honest, by the way. If you haven't seen the Deadpool trailer with, it's not really a trailer per se, so much as it's an ad with Deadpool apologizing to David Beckham. Look that up. That's a fucking riot. So here's a question for no one, because nobody's here really paying attention to me. If you are, you're not talking back. I have, in my opinion, my opinions of it is that I have issues really with them celebrating Rob Liefeld as much as they do as the creator of Deadpool. Now, yes, he drew the original elements of the character. That is the general costume idea. But Deadpool, as fans know him, is not really the Deadpool that Rob and Fabian Nizza originally came up with. You know what I mean? And really, all the changes that made Deadpool into a much better character. Alexa, skip. All happened post Liefeld's influence on the books. You know, it was after he had left Marvel and everything. So I guess I don't know. I kind of feel like they kind of put credit where credit's not due in a sense. Now, mind you, it's just the same as, you know, when they threw Stan Lee in there too. Technically, I mean, like Stan had nothing to do with Deadpool at all by that point. He wasn't editor of Marvel at the time or anything like that, as I recall. I'll double check. He might have been editor in chief. Now I think about it, he might have been. I don't remember if he had left by that point. But really, he wasn't as hands-on. Let's put it that way. Certainly. Just definitely struck me as an odd cameo when he was in the strip club. But I'd be interested to hear other people's thoughts on it. And it should be noted, I am not a Rob Liefeld fan, so. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, and I'm saying like 12 years old, I guess. 13 maybe? 13. I think I was 13 when X-Force came out. Look, I bought into the hype primarily because everybody's buying into the hype. But it didn't take me long until I stopped giving a shit about his. Like, I found his work to be literally terrible. You know, it was stuff where I had it, I read it. I wasn't a huge fan of his art, you know, but I kind of did it for a while at least when I was trying to break into. When I was a kid trying to draw comic books, kind of idea. I imitated it to a degree. I was trying to focus more on what I liked about Jim Lee than I did about Rob Liefeld. But, you know, I understood that Liefeld's style sold, so I did add a lot of elements from his shit that out of just an idea of maybe I could get into comics at 13 years old. But before I even finished 8th grade, I was like, dude, this asshole sucks. We started noticing how quickly, like, if you pay attention, like, Cable changes boots like 3 times in like the first 4 pages of X Force One, and it was like, you gotta have some consistency, man. You gotta at least try. But, you know. That's comics, man. That's literally comics is about telling a story and being consistent. You know. Had a this guy from Glass House Productions give me a critique one time, and he really laid it out very nicely. Of at least just basics of storytelling. He goes, look, if you get in eventually, you can start breaking these rules more often. He goes, but if you're trying to just get in, you need to be able to prove you can tell a story. And these things will keep you from being an idiot when it comes to telling a story. And it was simple stuff like, the 180 rule for, they talk about for camera movement, the panel, going panel to panel. You have two heads talking, two people. If you draw guy A over here and me like this, so, guy A is off to my right. And then I flip the camera around, so now I'm guy A. I should be still to the right of the panel. So the camera should never have gone all the way around me. It should have only just gone partially towards the side. That makes sense. Okay. Like if we were these two turrets, the camera could be kind of angled it this way or angled it this way, but by doing so keeps these two talking to each other on the same side of the panel. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain like this, but I think, I hope you get it. And, and it was little things like that he'd said, and he made it really great. And also that changed the way I came up with how my pages would work. A great part of his critique was stop looking at comics if you want to know how to draw comics. And what he meant by that, what he explained to me, because he did go into detail after that, I didn't just leave it at that, was he basically said, look, if you want to really know about how to direct your camera, and that's what, comics is. It's for the most part, it is storyboarding. And that's how he started putting it to us. Is you need to watch movies with directors that you like. And I was like, hold on, what? Like, I was like, oh shit, it never crossed my mind to think about it like that. And it was like, I kind of thought about the storyboarding aspect, I guess, to a degree, but it never really occurred to me, like, oh, fuck, if I watched, like, I'll get flack for this if anybody ever sees this, I'm sure. But one of the people I looked at and liked a lot was M. Night Shyamalan. Say what you will about, some of his movies and maybe the whole twist thing being predictable, etc., yada, yada, yada. And sometimes his characters, yes, come across as very stiff and kind of unemotional. All right, that's all legitimate critiques. But when it comes to fucking working the camera, Knight is solid. Knight is solid when it comes to camera work. He does some really good shit, and he's really good with camera suspense. And so I started paying attention to stuff like that as much as I could. Really got into some of that stuff. I know Signs is kind of like a up or down for people. I'll tell you one thing about Signs that I still bothers me. Not in it bothers me as a movie, so much as it bothers me about me. I watched that movie many, many times in this idea of studying for comic books, and I lost count how many times I'd actually watched that movie. And that fucking scene where the aliens are making their real push, they're really they're going to invade that night, their house is boarded up and locked up, but they're on the roof and they try to get, all that stuff. They get to that part where they're looking at the front door. You know, he holds the camera there. He just holds it, and he holds it to just enough degree that, like, for me, and maybe it's my ADD, whatever. I sit there and go, fingers come under, right? Like I start, like, it's like, okay, here comes the scene. The fingers are gonna come under the door. Okay, wait. The fingers come under the door in the scene, right? Fuck! There they are. It gets me every fucking time. Gets me every fucking time. It's just brilliant. I'm sorry. I have to give Knight that beyond anything else. The Unbreakable stuff, like the Unbreakable universe going on. I think he's got his shit back together. It may just be because I always wanted that to come back in a sense, but if you haven't seen Split, it's a good movie. And then life is just a dream here. Inside you feel right at home. Yeah. Welcome to my breakdown. I used to say if there was any justice, this song would play when I walk into my work. Like, not just in headphones or anything like that. I mean, like, literally, it would greet me when I come into the... Especially, it seemed even more after the breakdowns. Like, dude, it really should. So it really kind of is like this. Yeah, we sweat and laugh and scream here. A lot of angry people at my place. Business. They all get frustrated. I've gotten to the point there now. I actually don't even to participate in anything. Like if tomorrow's customer service appreciation or employee appreciation luncheon or some bullshit, and it's like, yeah, I'll pack my lunch. My opinion of it is they kind of took some stuff from me that I wish they hadn't. And I can't say I can't. Kind of wish I really wish they hadn't done. It hadn't been lost. Not the least of which is my already bad memory was made worse. I spent literally, and I'm not joking. It was all day. I thought about it in the car ride on the way into work, and I couldn't remember it. And then it hit me as soon as I had started to get out of work. I was about maybe 10 feet from my car when what I was trying to remember earlier in the day popped into my head. When my oldest daughter was born, I was super excited. I was still under the sort of delusion that her mother and I were gonna stick it out, kind of thing. But plus it's the birth of my baby girl. I adored her. As I said, I've said many times. I went to the University of Arts, which was on Broad and Pine, and there was a hot dog cart. That was actually on Broad and Spruce. Yeah. And I showed it to the guy. Yeah, the photo of Alexis. Fuck. That one I know what I said at least. I shown him the photo of my oldest child. Anyway, and I gotten to know him pretty well after that. I mean, he'd always ask me how my daughter's doing and stuff, and he was a really great guy. and I couldn't remember his name today. And I was trying as hard as I could because I'd known him over 4 years. He actually his cart ended up moving, and once I and his it was his brother-in-law had actually taken it over, and I didn't know that at first. Just knew one day this guy's not here. This is terrible. Alexa, skip. So I was trying to remember this gentleman's name today. His name was Khan. So it just struck me as really bizarre that this person I had an incredible number of interactions with, I couldn't remember, and like I said, the reason I know his brother-in-law took over his cart, the reason I figured out eventually was because I had a class that ended up in a building that was a little farther north on Broad Street. And I forget why. I think I was like pressed for time or something to get home or something along those lines. So I just bolted straight up Broad to get to the train station, but I was hungry and I had to stop to eat because whatever I had to do was like I had to get there and there wasn't going to be time to eat when I got home. So I stopped at this other cart that's farther up Broad Street, and there was Khan. And I was like, dude! I was like, I wonder what the hell happened to you. I was like, you were gone. He goes, oh, no, I bought another cart. I'm working this one. That's my brother-in-law. He had come over. I don't remember where they were from. And that's not going to... Might have been Syria. I don't remember exactly. And that's going to be something I know not going to get because it was only something it said once, maybe twice. But he had bought another cart and gotten his brother-in-law over so he could, I assume his sister too, but it was very cool, And so from that point on, I went up there. I went to see Khan. So, but it was weird because, like I said, my memory was always kind of shitty, especially with names. But if I had multiple interactions with a person that I liked, especially, I would always remember them. I mean, I can tell you the names of the waitresses I used to go to Denny's with my friends all the time. We got to know all of them, Jeanette and PJ. I mean, those were our two main ones that really adored us, and Jessie was another one. So she eventually stopped working there, so we lost contact after she had gotten pregnant. Like I said, I remember all this stuff now, but believe you me that even Jeanette and PJ and my friends, Mike, who was on here, who is now Theseus Paradox. He's going to have to explain that one to me. He could tell you that we were close to these people. We knew them very well, and they knew us very well. They knew our families, and who was who, and who was, like when my wife sort of fell into the fold with us as we started dating, as stupid as it sounds to say that they were trying, Denny's waitresses were trying to help impress my wife. They would kind of like sneak her a little something extra or whatever. I'm just trying to make a point but I had forgotten them. I had forgotten PJ. Simple. My nephew used to go by PJ. I should have that in my head. And it was gone for a little while. And so that's what I mean. So to my opinion of this is that they took stuff from me. I refuse to take anything from them. I don't see it as I refuse to take any gifts, let's put it that way. if I have my druthers, in my passing, I have a lot of notes and things that I've written over the past year plus, and actually even a little bit before my breakdown. My family is to release those. And at that point, I imagine if I have any type of artistic following with people, you know, people may be interested in it, and then that might cause a little bit of a press issue, a bit of a bad press issue, and I want that. I'm totally okay with the things I take being after I'm dead. That may sound sort of morbid, but I don't think it is. Not by the way I view things. Because the way I look at this, I mean this, I'm not making this to have my legacy now. If that makes sense. I've got a story I'm trying to tell about some shit that went wrong with me. And as I've said before, this is to me the idea of storytelling to people that don't speak my language per se. You know, I've said before, I don't like the idea of, let's put a little bit of that light blue in there, just to get it a little lightened. Maybe beat off some of that orange that was in there, let the blue consume. Anyway, you know, I don't like the idea of trying to do something that's pure abstraction or even overly expressionistic, because I want you to understand at least the subject matter at first. You know, you may not realize at first, without too much context about this having any relationship to that breakdown. But I think in time, and especially once the letters and writings are at some point released, that people will start to bridge that gap. I hate myself for making that joke. Jesus Christ. That was awful. Why don't you guys let me do that? Fuck. This is what happens if I had people on here watching. That would never have happened. See, I'm liking this a little bit better now compared to what was there before. It's not as messy. And like I said, I think this is going to work. I think what I want is here. Generally. Actually, I do want to get some French ultramarine in that corner, didn't I? I did say that. But oh yeah, oh that popped. I love that. Get that pop back. Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. Give me it, you little bitch. Yeah, you like that, don't you? Anyway, look, I fully admit I'm crazy, so don't worry about it. One flew over the cuckoo's nest. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's give a few. What the fuck was I saying? I'm like all lost. But no, like I think if all were to go sort of the plan, again, most of my goals per se are post-mortem. And I don't necessarily find that to be generally morbid, only because, as I've said a couple times, and I keep saying it because in case somebody ever stumbles upon this is our first show. You know, and then I'll have to go back and see how many times I repeat myself. But I'm not a man of religion. I don't have a religious belief per se. I don't really believe in an afterlife. this is my attempt at immortality. And that falls entirely on dumb fucking luck, for the most part. I mean, if I can get some sort of recognition before I die, great. If I can't, well, hopefully my kids will push it a little bit, and hopefully they find the right people. Yeah. It's as good a chance as anybody's, I guess. But I want a story, like I said, if you really were to look at the overall work I've done, not just the stuff that I've been doing since the breakdown. Now I'll say I believe my post-breakdown stuff has actually been some of my best stuff. But then again, I'm someone who regularly thinks that whatever I did last sucks. So, and the farther you go away from that, the more I think it sucks. So, I of course think things I did in college are awful. But, I'm getting kind of away. In everything I've done, even though it's been mostly in a couple portraits here or there, primarily still lives when I was in school, because it's what I could paint right in front of me. Landscapes when I could. A couple times I do like this, where I do it from a picture. And I used to do my little, 4x6s or whatever, tiny little photos. Now I do it from the 8x10. I still like, what's that part? My eyes are getting there, I guess. Anyway, but in all of that, maybe I need to make up. See, I lost a lot of the writings I used to have, but I need to maybe get back to stuff I did that I remember. I can hold on to still. I think there's a story. I think there's you get the major elements, at least. If you look at the stuff I was doing post my separation, into my divorce, etc. You can see, I think, a couple of things. I think you can see how very obsessed with my work I became. I was producing a lot of stuff in a generally short amount of time. Especially junior year, when really, my ex and I had split. We hadn't really officially divorced yet, but there was other shit going on. We were definitely in that kind of immediate bickering, but we were still kind of forced with each other because of our friends, like how our relationships were intertwined, And I think those kind of comes across, if for no other reason than the sheer amount of shit I was putting out. There are a couple things that I think are a little symbolic of what was happening. I have a painting. I have to break it out sometime. Actually, no, I take it back. I took it away. I did take it away from the studio. It's of two candles. One candle's lit, one candle's out. These candles, this actual specific candlesticks or whatever, were a present from my friend Phil for me and my ex-wife's wedding. And I had done that painting literally as this is the end of my marriage. It couldn't, it couldn't have been any more subtle or any more anti-subtle if I was a goddamn jackhammer hammering on nitroglycerin, as far as I was concerned. I was obnoxiously clear of what I was trying to get across. At least I think. And I think it was a successful painting. It's this bright candle burning. And it was, as I put it, I viewed that as that bright candle. It wasn't me and my ex-wife. It wasn't her candle. It was out, per se. It was the candle out is my marriage. The candle that was lit, the candle that was out was my first marriage. This one's still good. The candle that was lit was actually what I would say is, I will say it even to my wife now, is my first love beyond any other, which is this. So I was really trying to say, like, look, I had a fuck up. I had a bad fuck up. But, I held on to at least the main thing. Something I guess I should have tried to remember later. Might have got me through a lot more shit. Let's put that with French Ultramarine here. So I think in that there's this, that's part of my story. I think that comes across. At least I hope so. There were portraits of friends that when the portraits were kind of done, I want to make sure I say this in a proper way so that it's clear. I'm not trying to insult them, and I think I did explain this to them many years ago. Again, brain's not really remembering whether I did or didn't properly. But they were two guys. We were in a band together with, and they were two guys I thought I was closer with, and then I kind of found myself just sort of abandoned. And me and the other two guys that were left in the band were kind of left there, holding our balls, just trying to, well, what do we do now? But in that weird little moment, those two guys, at the same point, were there for me when this divorce was going on. That my shit had gone sideways. And I was kind of in a place where I didn't know what the fuck I was doing anymore as far as being a normal person. Normal as close as I can get, by definition. So it was this weird little moment that these people I thought I had been very, very good friends with had kind of kicked me to the curb. And these two guys that I'd known for a while, and one of them I'm talking about is Mike here, who's been on here many times. Actually, many, I've had that many shows. But, Mike and I butted heads a couple times creatively when it was coming down to the band and stuff. But at the same point, we began to start to see each other better towards the end of this, before these other two guys kind of just, like I said, walked away from all of us. Now since then, I guess we've all kind of mended our bridges to a degree. Me and the other two guys are kind of still our lives took us elsewhere at this point. Is how we kind of look at it. But here I found these two guys that turned out to be much better friends. And so I hope they get all the way to this point if they hear this. I would never trade them for the world at this point. You know what I mean? Like, those guys were just, they're Mike and my buddy Bill. I'm getting all teary-eyed. I really am. Getting super sentimental about this. So the portraits I did are of these guys that are, I did one of Mike, I did one of Bill. God only knows I still have them. I probably don't. They were shitty. I believe they were shitty. That's my opinion. Not the guys, the paintings. And I'm over. It doesn't matter. I'm going to still keep going a and stuff. The so I'm telling that story a little bit in this. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go full on cold. That French ultramarine is just too fucking dark. It's gonna mix in with that orange. It's already gonna get dark. So these guys, like here I got these two guys that I had known, and I wouldn't say that we weren't friends, but we weren't super tight, or at least not as tight as I thought I was with the other guys. And then we ended up being tighter than ever, I think. They certainly were there for me through some hard shit. And stuff that, I mean, legitimately, there's no way they could have really understood what I was going through. I mean, and that's just, I'm not critiquing that. I'm trying to explain, like, dude, I was a 20-year-old going through a divorce. There ain't a whole lot of people that understood that. Wondering about whether or not I was going to be allowed to see my kid more often. And my brother, who when him and his ex-girlfriend had split up, he only got to see his daughter on weekends. It's like, I wanted to make sure I could still see my kid. Blue's still not popping now. It's not doing what I want it to do. I might have to cut it and leave it for a little bit. Alexa, skip. Yeah. I'll throw these back on here just a little bit, just to divide it up. I'm gonna leave that for now, because I figure, you know what, I know I'm not going to get in here tomorrow. And like I said, I hope maybe I can get a little bit of time in on Saturday. So I'm just going to do a little outlining right here. Just a little touching. Make it pop. Were you scared that I might get hurt? Would I try a little tobacco? Would I keep on hiking up my skirt? I'm hungry, I'm dirty. But so just kind of go back so I get this. So, but I think in that I'm telling that story that I have these portraits I did of these guys, that these, this kind of beautiful treasure was discovered. I hope that comes across and they eventually look at those paintings or whatever. And then when it comes beyond that, once I met my wife and, we're dating a little bit and stuff, it's like, I did this painting of her once things started getting really serious. I literally went with the idea of how to make a masterpiece. And what I mean by that is, if you're, when people talk about, say, old masters, there was a method to making a masterpiece. It wasn't the way that the Impressionist masterpiece are. They painted this, they painted, lily pads like Monet, hundreds of times or whatever. I just kept painting them, and they're just beautiful pieces, and that was that. And they were just trying to capture that one moment. They weren't doing it time and time again on that one, just for that one painting. There weren't studies beforehand. There weren't any of that stuff. It was done and done. I was going at this painting for of my wife with studies and drawings and color studies and Um, you know, I did it as a ink drawing, so this way, if I didn't like it, I throw it out. If I liked it, it stayed in part of the grouping of it. Um, so that the intention was that when it comes time to paint this portrait of her, I would know her face inside and out to a level that is probably borderline creepy, but I do know it. And I painted this big motherfucking portrait of her. I think it's like 5 feet by 3 feet or something. It's a big fucking painting. It's a really big painting. And to me, it was something I'd never done in a way I'd never done it, and I haven't done it since. I think it's a very clear, like, Chickie, I like you, to my wife. And I also painted a painting of a rose, just a single red rose, a sign of love. I painted that for her, and I even went so nerdy or even if you want to use the word trite, that 2 of the petals are most certainly hearts, and they were intended to look like hearts when I painted it. Like I'm right next to each other kind of thing. I mean, it was cheesy. It was very cheesy. But I was trying to really express to her and to anybody that sees this painting when we're both long gone that how much I loved her. And I hope that's part of the story that gets told. And then, I have... when I first started working for Siemens, I was able to get a little more time painting. And I started working on paintings of my family. I have a painting of my daughter, my oldest daughter, and my son, and they were walking together. And my theory on that was siblings, more so than parents and children, are people that are going to walk together through life. Because eventually the parents are going to die, probably before the children. We all hope so, as parents. That we hope we outlive we hope our children outlive us. Not the other way around. So, the kids are going to have to be closer to each other. Or at least you hope they do. So, I was telling these more familial stories. Right word? I think that's the right word. I have a painting of my wife and my daughter working in the garden together, tending the garden. And, it's, I think, a cute little... It's a very Mary Cassatt feeling painting to me. The colors are not as intense during a lot of these paintings as I'm working with now. I mean, there's still a lot of bright colors, but I don't think they're as intense. I think that's, like I said, then we hit this point when my friend Bob died, and I'm working on a painting that literally encompassed his life motto. That carpe diem, that idea of really just, seizing the day. And at the same point, this thing was happening in the painting of my son riding horseback, and it was a very spur-of-the-moment decision where he was going to conquer a fear of a large animal he has. And so that's part of that story again. Now, unfortunately, like I said, it drug me out of my studio for a long time. But then I come back, and I think the stuff's been stronger, and it's still part of that storyline. Alexa, stop. I hope this isn't coming across like pompous bullshit. It's not. I'm not trying to bash abstractionists or anything like that. I really don't want it to come across like that either. There's some abstract artists that I do enjoy. It's just that, to me, this is a better way for me to tell it. I feel like it gives me a better way, like I said, to get that bridge of communication. I gotta make a note. I'm gonna mark it as Sunday, but just in case, Sunday. I don't want to forget that twig. Don't forget the fucking twig. Asshole. In case anybody's questioning, I do write that to myself. And then cobalt. Blue, so it's blue, and I don't want to confuse it with the violet. Shading. And then what my hope here is that, since I probably won't be back until Sunday, I mean, like I said, maybe Saturday, but by having a few days here, it'll give it enough of a little skin on there that I can go in with just like a little white and yellow overlap to give me those real ripples. And I very well may do longer strokes, not these choppy ones. That might work very well. And I'm going to put by Monday. I might ask the wife if Sunday's Mother's Day, she's going to want to spend time with me. All right, never mind. I was going to say maybe if I could ask her, we'll skip Westworld until Tuesday night, but Monday. All right, I think that's a plan. I think that's a legitimate plan. That's not going to be overly oppressive. I'll leave this here for my future self to discover. Much like a dollar bill thrown into your coat, and you forget about all winter. So, I think that's where we're stopping tonight, kiddos. I just realized I looked like a Batman villain the entire session tonight, didn't I? The cockeyed doorway. Where's Joker, baby? No. All right. So yeah. So plan is some cobalt blues. Like, this stuff was just coming in and mixing right with the orange. It's getting dark and ugly, and I wanted to have a blue. So we're gonna let that dry out a little bit, and then we're gonna throw that in there, get that, and that's all I've really listed for Sunday. That's not all I'm going to do on Sunday, but that's all I want to commit to on Sunday. All right, and then hopefully Monday, after my son's karate, get in here hopefully a little bit earlier than, what did I say, like 9 o'clock. My son's karate should be over by 8. Should be back here about 8:15. If I can jump in here like I did tonight, that'd be fucking sweet. So then we can get in here and get started on a little bit of like a lighter color overlay. Probably again this kind of palish, really pale blue. Get a little bit of that in there, get a little yellow, just give it some highlights, and that'll be it. It'll be what the fuck it is at that point. Because I'm fucking done with this, mentally. And then after that, I don't know what I have planned for Wednesday. I really don't. I know what I would like to do, but I was hoping to have Monday to work on it a little bit. And since I won't have that, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out a way to do this. If I can't do like put together a little thing first, um, I'll see if there's a way I can maybe live feed, um, web page specifically, and we'll maybe go through the Van Gogh show, the Van Gogh Museum's website, or the National Galleries, Philly site. One of them. Well, maybe we can figure out a way to just I can load the page up here, and we can work on something to discuss through there. Talk a little bit about artistic interpretation. So we'll see. Because I do want to do that a little bit first before I really start on the next piece. Next piece is going to be much smaller. It's going to be significantly smaller than this. I'm right now kicking between two ideas. I thought I was set on one, but I'm kind of going through doing a simpler still life idea instead of going into a study. The study, I really would like on my end to have some drawing done first. During my lunch breaks or whatever at work. Just anytime, not on camera per se. Just getting some practice on what I want it to look like. Kind of, not that I've ever shown on here, but my Daumier copy, I did some drawings beforehand. So I'd like to do that. So I think that's everything for now. And we're going to kick it here. Like I said, hopefully we'll figure out what's going to happen next. And hopefully, with what I've written, it's a plan. And hopefully, unlike Captain Cole says, we're going to come up with the plan, execute the plan, and hopefully we won't have to throw away the plan because it doesn't work anymore. Hopefully the plan sticks. All right, have a good night, guys.